Hey guys and fellow whiskey lovers. I'm Leon from Malt Mariners Whiskey Roads, and today I'm going to show you one of Speyside's best kept secrets. Thanks for tuning in, and today the Whiskey Road will take us to Speyside, into the small town of Craigellachie. Craigellachie is sort of like almost the center of Speyside. If you've ever been to Speyside in Scotland, you know it's crowded with distilleries. Every second turn you take, there will be a pagoda roof popping up in the distance or between some trees. There's so many distilleries in Speyside. It is the biggest region of Speyside, of whiskey distilleries in Speyside from the numbers. And yeah, I think we're looking at roughly 60 distilleries now. Not 100% sure, but it must be way over 60 distilleries. And yeah, there's so many distilleries there, and many of them don't really produce their malt whiskey for a single malt brand. They produce their whiskey for blended Scotch whiskey. So they are owned by a company, they're owned by a brand, and they use the whiskey produced by the distillery and mix it in a blended Scotch. From many of these distilleries, we whiskey lovers don't really get a taste. Some of those distilleries will be featured in the Flora and Fauna series, for example, from Diageo. Maybe you know those guys, like an Inchgauer, or I don't know. Mortlach used to be one of those. Now it has their own brand. Del Ewan, for example, is one of those. And there will be a couple of distilleries that have their own brand, but they don't focus on the single malt brand, and they don't really focus on the visitor experience. And one of those guys is Craigellachie, or the Craigellachie Distillery. Like I said, Craigellachie is the same name as a town. It's basically a couple of houses, and two of those houses are actually really interesting for whiskey lovers as well. For example, one is the Craigellachie Hotel with the Quake Bar, one of the most famous whiskey bars in Scotland. If you are in the area, definitely check out the Quake Bar. You can also eat in the restaurant, and you can stay in the hotel. And on the other side of the road, there's the Highlanders Inn, which is also a very renowned and famous whiskey bar. So there's plenty to do and plenty to see for whiskey lovers around the area. Craigellachie itself is a distillery that has no visitor center, so you cannot officially visit the distillery. I can show you a picture from the distillery from the outside, but I have not been able to visit the distillery, unfortunately. Sometimes you can visit a distillery during the Speyside Whiskey Festival. That gives you the opportunity to visit some of those distilleries that are not usually featured in terms of visits for tourists, because obviously they don't have a visitor center. Craigellachie. What else? Craigellachie is really interesting for me, because this is one of my top favorite whiskeys in Speyside. I'm not a huge Speyside whiskey fan, because I tend to like more heavy and like rough whiskeys, and Speyside usually the standard or the average Speyside character will be light and fruity, and I'm usually not really the type of person who prefers these kind of malts. And why I like Craigellachie, I'll get to that in a minute. Before we get to the whiskey, I want to show you. I want to talk about the brand again for a minute. It's owned by Bacardi, which is John Dewars and Son. John Dewars and Sons used to be the company, or is the company that is in Scotland, and it's owned by the international company of Bacardi, or by the, I'm not sure if it's international. Yeah, it's an international company, I think. So why do I mention that? Because usually I like to know which distillery or which distilleries are the sibling distilleries of a distillery under one company. And with Bacardi, that means that Craigellachie has the sibling distilleries of Aberfeldy. Then we have Oldmore, and we have Macduff. And I think there's a fourth one. I gotta check my notes here. Royal Bracla. That's the one I'm always forgetting. The house style of Craigellachie is usually described as extremely fruity, with some zesty and some citrusy kind of notes, usually in the direction of mandarin, pineapple, and orange peel. So these are flavors and tasting notes you will get most predominantly on Craigellachie. And concerning the style, which is the reason why I like this so much, is that it's not really the Speyside whiskey style that would be in the most average description of Speyside, because it's quite a heavy, meaty spirit, and that is probably thanks to the warm tub condensers that are used in the distillery. So this is the traditional cooling method, which has like coiled copper tubes, copper pipes that are where the fumes from the still go in, and then these coils are sitting in a water bath, and therefore the alcohol fumes will be cooled down and turned back into liquid. And this method is less efficient than the modern tube and shell condensers, but it will give the spirit a more meaty and a more heavy kind of character. And before we now talk about the whiskey, I want to talk about the whiskey now, I want to show you this bottle, and I really, really enjoy this design. I have to say, it is one of my favorite designs, and in the back you will see the warm tub condensers here. I'll try to put in a picture so you can look at that closer. Craigellachie, like I said about this whiskey itself, this is the whiskey I would definitely would recommend you to try. This is their standard bottling, 13 years old, quite an unusual age for a whiskey. Usually they bottle the whiskey at 10, 12, or 15. 13 years, I quite like that. And they have a 17-year-old. I quite like that as well, but I think it's a bit overpriced compared to the age. And they have a 13-year-old Armagnac finish. I tried that one. I didn't really enjoy it that much. But the thing is, the 13-year-old has such a good value for money price point. In Germany, we pay 40 euros for this. In the UK, you will pay roughly 45 to 50 pound. And in the US, you might pay something like $65. So I think this is a really, really good value for money. As far as I know, the whiskey is not chill filtered, but I think it might be colored. So there might be some artificial coloring in here. And I think it's mainly bourbon cask matured. They don't really tell us much about the cask combination which is used here. But on the back it says here that today we still use old-fashioned warm tubs to cool our spirit and bestow it with extra flavor, creating a dram to rival whiskies twice its age. And I honestly would agree with that. I think this is a very, very, like they said, distinctive character, and I would totally agree. Like distilleries that might have a similar character would be, for example, Mortlach and Benrinnes in Speyside, and I feel that Craigellachie has a bit of the same character as Cragganmore. And while I smell this is absolutely fantastic. I am such a big fan of this whiskey. Immediately, it's really like sweet and not like candy, maybe like there's a sugary note in here, but most certainly it is like orange peel, candied, like almost like orange, like candied orange, if I can say that, like sugared fruit peel. This is just so attractive. It's so amazing. I'm really trying to I have to obviously tasting notes might be a bit tricky to find my words here. So there's most certainly something like a yellow fruit, orange marmalade, but not really that bitter. It's very sweet, like pear juice, something like that. It's very fruity, very sweet. And there is some mineral flavor in the background. That is what I really enjoy. That is this type of meaty flavor. that sometimes will tend to go into the metallic route if you are sensitive with that kind of stuff. Yeah, cheers. I'm taking a sip. So this is 46%. On the tongue, on the tip of the tongue, you will get all the nice fruity notes, all the citrusy flavors, some caramel, some malty, some cereal flavors, and in the back of your tongue, as soon as you get to the finish, it becomes more bitter, more woody. There will be some nutty notes, some almonds, some maybe some ginger, and that could be a bit too much for some people. I think that this bitterness is something that some people might be a bit overwhelming here. But I really enjoy this dram. I think this is like one of the best whiskeys in the price ratio that you could buy for 46% in Speyside, in my personal opinion. So if you're looking, obviously, if you're looking at Speyside and good value for money, you would definitely want to look at Glenfarclas, for example. But those are more the sherry kind of matured malts. This one is very much bourbon cask driven. I think there might be some sherry cask in here, but mainly from the taste profile, it is very much bourbon cask driven, because bourbon cask will usually give you like vanilla, some citrusy notes, some apples, some pears maybe, and the almond, like the nutty notes. So all this mixes very well with this meaty, fruity character of Craigellachie. And I think they also give you like a batch number. So this is quite unusual for a standard bottling. If you look here, there's like a number on the label. So I never really noticed this until now. So I definitely have to keep an eye on these bottlings if they really give you like batch numbers, because that would be really interesting actually. I never saw that before. There's so much happening on the label, so you can get lost on that. Some people don't really like it, but I quite like it. I think it's a bit like, it's almost like a bit like a steampunk, or a bit steampunky. So I quite enjoy that. It's pretty cool. So yeah, I mean, that's basically my my little walk through Craigellachie and this bottling, which I really like. It's very intense. Like this, it's very intense, and you have to be happy with these meaty notes. Like, if you are a fan of very smooth whiskey and you don't like your whiskey to burn at all, like if you're in the camp of Glenlivet, Glenfiddich, Tomintoul, Cardew, then maybe Craigellachie might be a bit rough for you guys. But except for the 13-year-old version, you might also find some independent bottlings. The Scotch Malt Whisky Association, how they call it, SMWS, Scotch Malt Whisky Society, they had some cracking Craigellachie bottlings, and you might find some Craigellachie's with the big independent bottlers like Signatory Vintage or Gordon MacPhail, but also some smaller. Actually, I think they give away some casks quite freely, so I think you might find some Craigellachie's now and then, and I think they're always worth looking into. Obviously, if they're independent bottled, you don't really know what you're getting, so it might be always a good thing to try them first. But my personal recommendation is really just get yourself this bottle, because it's really a low risk. It's a very good, affordable price. It's unchill filtered, 46%, and I think this is a really, really good single malt from Speyside that goes out of the typical cliche lines of Speyside whiskey. So yeah, I have nothing bad to say about this whiskey. Absolutely recommended here. And yeah, that's all I got to say for about today. Yeah, Craigellachie 13. Buy it, enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, send it back to me. I'll have it. Okay, so yeah, let me know in the comments below what kind of Speyside whiskeys you really enjoy. What are your hidden gems? What are the secret drams, the secret distilleries that you think are really worth checking out in Speyside. And I'll see you next time and down the road. Cheers.